Heyo. Welcome to Benchwarmers, a WOSO podcast, episode 30. I'm turning 30. No, I'm not turning 30, thank God.
You're closer to it than I am.
Again, you're going for it again. Wow, are we just going to do it for the whole, every 30 episode? You're going to be like 31, 32. This is horrible. Yeah. But not as horrible as Kira Walsh is in 30, by the way. That's my least favourite 30, but I don't have a favourite 30. Is there any other 30s out there?
We don't have a 30, we have a 31, but we can reserve that for next week.
We'll save that for next week. But, I mean, look, we will end up talking about Kira Walsh at some point, not from a playing standpoint, but from a Chelsea standpoint. But we will go one at a time. We will start with the second leg of the Champions League, 4 games again, for somewhat blockbusters in some aspects, but some not in others. But the first game we will talk about, which was the first game on the agenda, was definitely attempting to be a blockbuster, but then became a blockbuster, which was the idea of United coming to the Allianz Arena. I don't think they'd get a sniff. I thought they would Barcalas would take control, but no, it was early on. Skinner's mob made a mark in the Allianz and definitely pretty much ran portions of the early parts of this game. I want to say the first half an hour at least, where Rolfo, Miyazawa, Lundqvist, a mixture of youth and youth in the Champions League at least, and then the experience in the Champions League of Rolfo, of Leah Schuller going up against the left side of the pitch, which was Gwyn and Dahlmann, which I would say is the more difficult part of the pitch to manage without Clara Bull in the team. And they did very well. And then in that 14th minute, they shifted onto their right side very quickly, and then Marmutovic made a mistake. Mallard gets inside, and all of a sudden, the game is open, right? And once they scored, I was kind of nervous. I was actually like, wow, this United team's running on aura. They're running on the moment. They're going for the occasion, especially the shot that Mallard had. What was it, 3 minutes later, that Marmutovic saved to her left, definitely a amazing save. Now in hindsight, even better save, watching that getting firm and low to the ground. It was definitely a goalkeeper's match day, this Champions League, especially for and against the English clubs. But then we had Parks Crot, which I'm just going to call them all Crots from now on. But Marmutovic saves this one as well. Rolfo was ripping apart Bayern players like it was personal, because it probably is personal for her in a lot of ways. And I mean, luckily Vanessa Gilles exists and is not injured right now, because she was absolutely sublime. I don't know how she didn't get player of the match. I know Dahlmann was amazing, and I know there were some other players who definitely worth a mention, but my Canadian GOAT made 18 defensive contributions, 13 of 14 duels won, 8 on the ground, 8 out of 8, and 5 out of 6 in the air, and the only one I think she lost was later on in the game. But they weren't even trying any aerial stuff to Schuller, because Gilles were just winning them all. We had a moment with Ket and Maya Letitia, where Maya Letitia told her to get the fuck up, which was hilarious. I think she is trying to gauge contact, but Maya does dive in with her left foot, so I think it is a question of what's going to happen. And then, I mean, you could say it, you could say it just as well as me, how Bayern came knocking in that second half.
Well, I think at the start of the first half, it was pretty obvious that Bayern were kind of looking to sit back, soak up as much pressure as possible, and even potentially skirt by a draw, or even just a late goal by the end of the game. But at the end, and especially starting in that second half, you could tell that there was an intensity that they had that they just didn't have at the start of the game. And most of that really came from the likes of Dahlmann, but just that right-hand side in general. I mean, you can see that without Clara Bull, they are able to shift and adapt to playing more on the right than they are on the left. And as a result, you're seeing, as I said, Dahlmann, Tanakawa, Stanway come to life. Julia Gwyn was outstanding, and her shot, her dribble into the box and shot was only saved by some last-ditch defending. And at the end of the day, they were 1-0 down, but to me, it was kind of obvious that someone was going to show up, whether it be on a cross, whether it be on a drive in through the box. At the end, it was a Dottier. It was as an Icelandic goat.
Thank God for the Dottiers and the tears of the dots. But I will say, There were some moments before that, even like I think Armani was excellent in controlling the midfield that United have been thriving and like relying upon for the better part of what now it's been. We're 6.5, 7 months into the season, and you had moments where I think Gwyn, that shot that was blocked by Gwyn, I think that's a handball. I think Millie Turner has fallen on the ball, her arm has hit the ball. I don't know how that's not a penalty in any way. I don't know how they missed that on VAR, but also it didn't matter in the end. But this Simon corner to Vigos Dottir / Gilles has been an absolute menace pretty much all season now, and I think it's, I mean, as we know that Barca were through before the game happened, but Bayern being through now, I think if Barca want to manage corners, that's the big one, because it's not just happening in the Champions League, it's happening in the league as well, where Simon is whipping these balls in to the aerial threats that are the Icelandic Dottirs and the Vanessa Gilles of it all, who is one of the greatest aerial threats that we've had since probably Sinclair in a lot of ways. But it was, I thought it was cleared off the line, like that moment where that header with Vigos Dottir, like I thought Talis Joyce would get that, and she got her hand to it, which made me think that she definitely could have saved it, but I guess the header was too powerful. And then 4 minutes later, another corner from Simon to Vigos Dottir, except this time it's cleared off the line by Mallard. And then, look, this Dalman volley, there's a lot of factors to this play. One of them, first and foremost, get it out of the way, United's defending of this, which was just slow. It looked like they were on lag. Like, no one went out to Dalman at the 12-yard line. But I do want to say that she makes this strike look so easy. Like, the amount of times a player hits this strike and it just gets blocked, or just hits the ground, or it just skies up. Like, there is so many variables at play here, and she struck it perfectly into nearly the roof of the net above Mallard as well, which was a fantastic strike from a veteran. That, again, we spoke about Dalman last week in the Hoof v Dalman thing, but she is just an icon of Bayern Munich and has just launched them into a semi-final and booked a date with a Barcelona. It'll be very interesting. I think Miyazawa's long shot at the end, the 88th, 87th minute, was the only shot United had in the second half. So it was just a complete game of two halves where they pulled out that 2-1 win at home to, end up 5-3 on aggregate, I believe. And look, I think it is, as much as I'd love to pile it in on United, I think it is quite an admirable first campaign. As much as there was a lot of investment, there was a lot of expectation. I didn't expect them to beat Bayern. I didn't even expect them to be in this game at all. So, Pernilla Harder was off her game. She had one moment with that half turn and didn't end up firing, had a lot of shots that got saved by Talis Joyce. So, look, it's not a bad performance by any means, but with their current form right now, especially we'll get into their WSL form as well, it might leave a lot to be desired.
Well, I think United, especially at the start of the season, the style of football that they were going for reminded me a lot of tournament football. So this was pretty much a campaign driven by the desire to be in a Champions League quarterfinal, semi-final, just anywhere near trophy Champions League spots, right? So the way that they played today and the way that Bayern matched up to it is very interesting, seeing as in the league we've seen quite a dip in their form. So to come back and yes, much like in traditional tournament football, you play conservative. I think that there was a total shots of 7 and 16. So United had 7 shots. Bayern had 16. At the end, it was only 2-1. And that's usually what I would expect from what I thought was probably going to be not the closest tie, but a tie that would show and maybe even expose how United can overly rely on that quote-unquote tournament football, which at the end of the day is just rigid, conservative, quite ugly football relying on individuals.
100%, and I think that will be weeded out next season, and whether that's weeded out with or without Mark Skinner is obviously the question. And there has been rumours and talks about their lack of the board and the directors' unhappiness, disdain for the current form and the current performance targets, but I guess it's based on a semblance of consistency, and especially where they will finish up in the WSL will definitely dictate Mark Skinner's fate. But we will get to the WSL at some point because I'm going to roast Mark Skinner a little bit more for that performance in comparison to this one where there is a little bit more praise to give. But we will move to the next game on the agenda, which, I mean, your background is in reference to, it's on the other side of the draw as well, basically the direct opposite side of the draw, but we have the second leg of the London Derby at the Bridge this time. Obviously 3-1 down, had to pull something out of the Bridge. They did get the win, but it wasn't enough. And I think you can be it's your first loss in how long? I can't even remember
ages.
how long.
I think have we lost this year?
I don't think so. Not to my recollection.
No. Yeah. So, look, I went into this game incredibly optimistic because, to me, as I said last week, we don't actually need to score. And I am a bit upset that we lost the actual 90 minutes. But to have a full-rounded, two-leg performance like that, we hadn't done that before. The last time that we weren't down in a Champions League 2 draws was, I believe, back in 2022. So, this is a completely different approach that we had to take. We were ahead rather than behind. And I think from a perspective that I'm taking from a fan, it can actually be quite daunting because you're going to the Bridge. You know the players like LJ love the Bridge. Sam Kerr loves the Bridge. And these are the kind of areas where you'd kind of think, okay, if they get one early, it could be a contest. But the problem is that Chelsea were not good in the final third. They can have as many chances as they like. They can hit the post as many times as they like. They can go post-game and say that we were the, quote, better team. But at the end of the day, who's getting the ball in the back of the net? Actually, the first person who did get the ball in the back of the net was Tino Blackstenius. And it's about chances and about making those chances count. And in the Champions League, we've seen when push comes to shove, Chelsea have been unable to make the final clinical finish in every single juncture. And that's why they are without a Champions League trophy.
And look, it finally puts to bed my prediction of them winning the Champions League. I think there were moments in this game where I thought they were getting on top of you, and if they got one, they just had to get one. Yeah. If they got one in the first half, I think you could have easily seen a semblance of fear, or it just didn't look like you were afraid at all. I didn't think Arsenal were afraid at any instant other than the 90th. Once they scored, there was a little bit of angst, but obviously there was always going to be angst in the last 5. But I mean, I kind of want to talk about some of the controversial moments of this game, mainly ones that are decisions that have to be made by referees, and the referee on the screen at the time are either in VAR or in the field. I didn't think there was any offsides that were wrong. I didn't think any throw-ins were very poor. I think a lot of the fouls, especially in the retaining the ball section of the game, the shielding the ball moments, I think were just really just arbitrary here and there, and I felt like there were just ones that were won and ones that were lost, and they were kind of the same thing. And you watch Lucy Bronze just look at the ref you have you have just as much of an idea of whether that was a foul as I do, and that's fair and that's fine, and that will always go either way. But the ones that players get away with are the ones that I hate the most. So, for example, the Lauren James standing on Katie McCabe. Anyone who thinks that Lauren James doesn't know what she's doing is blind. It's so obvious she's been playing a game. She's been slightly locked up. She's had a few moments to get on the outside and whip the ball in and do her thing. And I'm not going to sit here and say Chelsea didn't have chances. They had many chances to get in this game, but she was frustrated. McCabe was hassling her, which is exactly what McCabe is supposed to do. And she stood on her and she got nothing for it. And the ref even stopped the game because McCabe was visibly in distress on the floor because she's been stood on by a player who stood on people in the past, and it's just ridiculous. And I think, I mean, that kind of goes in the same vein as the Katie McCabe hair pull on Alyssa Thompson, which I also don't really care if it was unintentional or not, and I don't care how many stories on Instagram you post about it being unintentional. It's a red card. You can't do that. You just can't. And it doesn't matter if you're trying to grab the shirt. That's also again, there was a card. It was just the wrong color. And it doesn't matter what you're trying to go for. That was it. The repercussions of her getting a red card would mean she would miss the first leg of the semi-final as well, which is massive, right? And to say, oh well, it doesn't matter to Chelsea because they're out. It matters massive to Chelsea because Chelsea don't want their London rivals to win against Lyon. Lyon. And Lyon will have a much better field day on the right side with De Mornay going at Taylor Hines in comparison to Katie McCabe getting in her head for 90 minutes, right? It's so like glass half empty when we say, if she should have been sent off, then Lauren James should have been sent off. They both should have been sent off. Like I'm here sitting here, and I'm probably neutrally biased. Like I hate both teams, but the reality is that there are just effects on the game like that. Obviously, it takes a lot of toll on the second leg, and it takes a lot of effort for the referee to go, oh, you know what, I'm going to make this decision that's going to heavily impact the semi-final late on in the game when it's a London derby and it's a derby and we don't need to pull out cards as much. But I feel like that was a moment. I think all the VAR stuff, like the Steener's goal that I think is a fantastic goal, and his Smiller is like a toenail offside. Sure, that's fine. That you're always going to call the offsides. That's fine, and it's semi-automated because it's the Champions League. But if you can't see a hair pull and if someone's standing on each other as a red card, then I don't know what football you want to watch.
I think you can simultaneously criticize Katie McCabe and her actions, which were obviously a red card offense. But you can also not blame the video assistant referee, who has absolutely no say in what is being done on the pitch. The referee does. The referee has the final say. The people in VAR can call it back, but they are just as human. And I think that if we can actually differentiate the difference between the video assistant referee and the referee on the ground who decided not to go to VAR, then that completely eliminates all the talk post-game by Sonia Bonpastor, which I think completely is a deflection tactic from her team not performing well over two halves.
Have you never heard of like the new element that got discovered in 2016? It's called like copium. Yeah, it's like literally I cannot believe Sonia Bonpastor has pulled out her phone to show like
logged into Twitter.
Like that's like a 16-year-old manager. Like that's like it's the petty maturity of like someone who goes like, oh, have you watched this moment here? Like this is exactly what happened. And look, I agree with her. I just think it's so out of character for someone who embodies in my head from like, if you asked me like 6-7 months ago, episode 1, what I think of Sonia, and you told me, you went back in time and said Sonia's going to whip out her phone to justify an anti-refereeing decision, I would have been like, there's no way, because she embodies professionalism. She embodies like no salt. She's not salty. Even when she lost all those finals to Barcelona, even when she lost a multitude of games in her tenure at Lyon.
Yeah, but she's at Chelsea now. Like, there's a level of entitlement.
Do you think it rubs in?
Completely. In her post-match conference, if you watch the whole thing, she brings out receipts from games that Emma Hayes was coaching. Like, she talks about the referee like she has a vendetta against Chelsea. This is a representative now of Chelsea. This is no longer Sonia Bonpastor for Lyon, the Lyon that she has a multitude of trophies for, who can back herself. This is a Chelsea team and a Sonia Bonpastor team that is completely detached from reality. They are not a good football team. They can delude themselves as much as they like and blame other people, but it's that sense of entitlement that is prevalent within this club, that is in the WSL, that is now in the Champions League. They cannot identify the blaringly obvious thing, which is they can't play a game over two legs. That's basically it.
100%. And tournament football is different, and it doesn't matter if it's what people say, dark arts, anti-football, that your team would do the exact same thing. Sonia would do the exact same thing if they were on the other side of the coin, and they have been on the other side of the coin because that's how cup football, that's how they got to the final of the Subway Cup. You slow the game down. It's exactly right. And their form isn't indicative of a team that deserves to be in a Champions League semi-final because we'll get to their WSL game at some point. But I mean, I do want to shout out CO Nusken for her goal. It was a well-taken strike, a well-taken finish against a goalie. I mean, there's a reason why I've put her kit up, because Van Domselaar made a multitude of saves. Namely, the one, was it against Sam Kerr, I believe?
Yeah, there was the one against Sam Kerr. There was the one against Nusken as well.
And the header. Who was the header? That was the one where she saved it onto the. Was it a save onto the post or something?
Yeah, that was Oh, I forgot who it was. She just was
Yeah,
incredible.
no, she was insane. But the one against Sam Kerr is probably the one that people will remember the most, where Sam is on a counter
Oh,
attack and then she slows her down.
it was what's her name? Berman? Was it Berman?
Ah,
Or
yes,
Kapstein?
Berman's header, yes, and it was saved magnificently by Domsla. As much as I think that I think she would want that header back one more time just to be able to put that further in the far corner, which is what happens if Van Domsla, if you give her easy strikes, she builds into the game, and she did it all of last year's Champions League campaign, and she just makes save on save on save, and you've got to beat her in the corners, and I think it's crucial, and they just gave every ample opportunity for DVD to build into this game so that she could do her business, and I think that was, I mean, Nuskun should be very happy to even beat her once in this game, to be
Well,
fair.
I think if we go back to the start of the Champions League campaign, DVD was mainly, if you want to say, the reason why we lost to Lyon. She had two horrendous
Oh, yeah.
mistakes at Boreham Wood. And so as a result, we were looking at Annika Borba, who's had an incredible 2026 slash late 2025. And I think now there's the real challenge between the two about who starts. And DVD to me is always going to start. She has the experience in
Yeah.
the Champions League. But I am not, I don't think I would be alone in saying that we have the best set of keepers in the Champions League currently. I don't think that there's anyone as close in quality to their first keeper as Annika Borba is to her first keeper.
I think it's I mean, the only argument you would say is only if Leon had Micah fit, but currently with Micah not
Micah has no
healthy.
Champions League experience though, so that's
yeah,
my
yeah,
thing.
but that's also based on the fact that Enla is going to play those Champions League games, and ultimately I think Belhaj will obviously eclipse Micah at some point, because I think Belhaj has been given the trust to be able to do those moments. But I think it is an amazing set of keepers. I think Borba is a great shot stopper. I still don't trust her with her distribution as much, her balls at her feet, and the ability to just claim the box. Whereas I think, look, the best of DVD is obviously better than most keepers in the world. I just think, yes, DVD is probably more mistake prone, albeit not many mistakes to just justify someone as mistake prone. But look, Chelsea are gone and Arsenal are through, and I don't think anyone is happier than my podcast host by my side as we move to the next game, which, I mean, it felt like deja vu, actually worse, but a packed out Camp Nou, absolute scenes at Camp Nou. Barcelona v Real Madrid, the second leg after the 6-2 massacre at Real Madrid's home at Di Stefano. This was at the Camp Nou, and my God, it was the same story, just worse, because Linda Caicedo had no sniff of the ball. Irina Paredes and Esme Brutes giving her way closer attention this time, and even the best chances she set up for Athenea just didn't go in, fella. Kadakoi putting enough pressure on them, but it took 8 minutes for the GOAT, the absolute GOAT, in her 500th game to get the opener off a rebound. AP11, not Alex Pop, the maestro, the magic, the intuition, just alone in the middle of the box. Like, what are we doing here? She's just absolutely magnificent and ended up with a goal and 2 assists in a 6-0 win at home, 12-2 on aggregate. This is just absolutely mental. But I wrote a little thing just to commemorate the occasion for the Catalan maestro that is Alexia Putellas. Alexia, if you ever hear this, please don't judge my Catalan. Any Barcelona player that might see this, please don't judge my Catalan. I mean, it's just like, what, 50 days of Duolingo.
This is why they want independence, Ben. They just don't want to deal with this.
Probably. Well, so I don't do it in Spanish. That's why. But I have written, so as it goes, 500 games in the Blau and the Grana, 500 games of wizardry mastering football arcana. Cinccents jocs per a la cabra, el miglior exemple que el la masia abraca. 500 games of beauty and finesse, 500 games, 500 of the best. 500 for Lorena, let the flags be unfurled. 500 for Alexia, the queen of the world. And I just think she is just I've run out of things to say about this human being. Honestly, she's just seriously unstoppable. There are moments in this game that I even thought she did the wrong thing, and it ends up right. And I mean, we might as well skip to that goal because it's the Caro's second goal, I believe, where Alexia gets the ball and plays it across. She actually steals the ball, wins it back, and it's like a line of like 6 or 7 Madrid defenders, and she does this no-look pass across the box. And any coach would tell you that's a horrible pass to make. You're playing it across the line. It's easy to intercept and just drive through, but it somehow manages to make its way all the way along the line of defenders and gets to Caro, and then you think Navarro's going to handle her. She's got body on her. She's pulling her back's to goal. She's off balance. It's like a 180 no scope from Caro, and this is Caro at her best. We wanted Caro at her best. We finally got Caro at her best, and she was player of the match pretty convincingly in this game with, I believe, 2 goals. Probably should have had a third when Pina absolutely set her up on a golden platter after skilling 3 Real Madrid defenders. I mean, I call them defenders at this point. It is just like statues or like traffic cones, but it was absolutely mental. I mean, Misa was making double saves that were insane for Carol and Pio, and they still lost 6-0. It was mental. I'm trying to think of the other goals. I know Irena Paredes had a goal. I know that Vicky ended up looping one in for Ewa, and Ewa's header got saved, but then she gets the rebound to her own header. It was just mental how many goals they ended up with, and I think the 6th goal was a lofted ball from Patri Guiaro, which we never give enough credit to Clara Serradordi, who is starting to make a serious impression on this Barcelona side. I think she's becoming I don't know if she's the first player off the bench yet with Kika Nazareth still on the bench, but once Kika is starting, if Barcelona gets culled again, I think Sarah Geordie will be a big part of making sure that they stay the team they are, because she just gets on the end of chances and then just has been a mainstay since Aitana has been injured, and then she played it across to Vicky Lopez, who finally gets her goal in this game. 33 shots to 8 big chances to 2, and I mean, this is the team that is putting nightmares into Bayern Munich players right now, thinking what is going to happen in this semi-final.
I think that you could use all the superlatives in the world for Barcelona and still not be able to truly replicate the dominance that they had in this tie in Europe against Real Madrid. Like
In the last half decade.
in the last 6 years, 7 years. Like, to me, Barcelona are a team of inevitability. They are just that. They are just Barcelona in a way that, like, you cannot underestimate them. You can never take them out of a tie. And Real Madrid, on the other hand, are a team that looked so tired, like so physically and mentally tired. None of them wanted to be there. So much
But
so,
would
yeah.
you want to be there after this is your third this is
Yeah,
their third
and
El Clasico in what,
in a
9
week.
days,
Yeah.
10 days, and they've copped how many goals in those four El Clasicos?
I
It's
don't think I
insane.
don't think it matters. Like, to be honest with you, I don't think it matters. Like, to me, if you're a Real Madrid team, and this is going as the like core philosophy of your side, if you're Real Madrid, it's not like, never say never. It's more like we will decide our own destiny kind of thing. And Real Madrid have absolutely no semblance to the Real Madrid ethos. They are completely detached. And this is not me propagating that ethos, because obviously that ethos is incredibly problematic. But if you're Real Madrid and you're going up against Barcelona, similar to basically any team going up against their like one true derby team, then you give it a go. And there was absolutely no fire, no mentality. It looked like those players purposely gave up that tie, just to get Casada out. Like, it's gonna take more than like a 12-2 loss than getting Casada out at this point. That guy has survived basically everything that you can as a football manager. This is now on the players. This is on the likes of the talismans of that club. I'm thinking Misa. I'm thinking Mendes. I'm thinking Athena, and I'm thinking Patrick.
I would go Mendes, but I'd actually go to the midfield. I'd go to
Yeah.
De Bruyne, I'd go to Angadal, I'd go to Toletti. These are like players
Well, the
that need
Brits
to
didn't
be.
even play. Like this is
Yeah,
like
no, no, no,
you're going to be
but this
asking
is
Toletti and Angledal to be doing all the work.
yeah.
Like again at the same time, like you're asking outsiders in that really like rudimentary term to try and lift this team up when actually it should be those that are like no offense, but like it should be those who are Spanish. Like this is our classical tie. Like this is a tie for your own, not even your own semblance of form, but just like your own quote unquote dignity. Like, how do you go back to Madrid now, having lost 12-2 on aggregate to Barcelona? That is to me like you should just disband, just start over.
I don't know. It's hard because it is just we do just give Barcelona, we just do give teams the benefit of the doubt when they come up against Barcelona. And look, I think that excuse will wear off in time, and I think ultimately there needs to be a level of investment in Real Madrid that will make them actually in line with the ethos that we were talking about before. But like Hala Madrid doesn't work if you don't have the team behind the like the hailing. Like you need to be able to like prove your standard on other parts of the world before you can say, oh, like we don't own Spain, but even if we're not as good as Barcelona, we should be beating you. And like they were close against Arsenal, and that was an admirable game. That's probably the
Well,
like
they
the
beat
most
us.
admirable. I mean, yeah, there were moments where you thought, like you think to yourself, where they are somewhat developing that narrative of what they should be, and they shouldn't be looked at as like Barca's skid marks, but they kind of are, in the sense of that Barcelona embody Meshke un club better than anyone else. Like they came out at the Camp Nou. You see that banner right at the top when they walk
Yeah.
out. It says Meshke. It says more than a club, and you hear any player who ever played or you currently plays or used to play at Barcelona who talks about that more than a club thing, and you understand it when they're in the stadium and you see Alexia hailed like she is royalty, and it felt like this game was played in a coliseum. Like they were absolutely getting behind this team as they knew what was going to happen before it even happened. I kind of thought this would be like a management kind of thing, which Barcelona have done before, the 1-0 2-0 kind of like retract and control, but they turned up for this game and they went for the jugular, and it's embarrassing. It is. I do agree with that, but I think Real Madrid need to pull their heads in. They need to win the games that they have left in the Liga F, and they need to come back next year with new players, different identity. And look, they've been linked to Niamh Charles. I don't know if Niamh Charles is the answer on that left side or changes the scoreline in any way, despite the fact that Caro was player of the match, arguably in both games. She was in the second game, the game we're talking about right now. But there needs to be a fear factor to Real Madrid that is what the men have preyed on. It doesn't matter if the identity of the football is worse. They would beat Barcelona based on the individual brilliance and the scare that someone comes. And whether it is a Lukta, whether it is a Tessavala, it's going after players that are going to cause a little bit of like, we actually haven't seen this before. We don't know what's coming. They knew exactly what was coming, and they stopped it and they cut it away. And it's the exact same if we link that to Lyon and VFL. We kind of all thought that at the Groupama, maybe VFL can hold their own, can grind it away, but it was pretty much exactly what was expected in the sense of the domination level. The Geraldes football is so menacing. It's so present. The highest pressing I've ever seen in WOSO for a WOSO side in my recent memory. I'm seeing players that are strangled in their own 18-yard box. They couldn't even get it out of halfway in that second half. It was absolutely insane. I think if the stats treat me wrong, I can't remember 100%, but I know they had something like 19 corners for the game because they were just thwarting them in their own half, and they just couldn't bomb it out. Even Stine Johannes stopped launching it forward, and I mean that's the problem with not having Alex Pop, because if you have Alex Pop there, then you can launch it forward, and they can win the aerial threat against against a Lyon defender like Engen or whoever they're going to play at the back. But the reality was that they got their goal early. Lyon, their Titans, got their goal from their promised yank. That is Lilian Isabella Johannes, a low-driven edge of the box, deflecting off Janina Minga, which is a shame for the 1-0. But the reality is that's the kind of goal that goes in tournament football, and Johannes goes on her sheet anyway as the next face of WOSO, the next face of the US women's national team, has got a goal in a Champions League quarterfinal, and rightfully so. It's the first goal. It's the goal that gets them back in. And there were some profligate chances. If I'm an Arsenal fan and I'm watching this game, I'm thinking to myself, you know what, we might be able to get away with murder here, because between Yula Brand, Diani, and Ada Hegerberg, and like Salma Basha was insane. I mean, I changed who my favorite left back in the world. She's not a left back. She's just not a left back. It's not fair to call her a left back. She's so far up the pitch. Yeah, exactly. She's just a left-sided flank winger player, like a Rolfo and Esme. Exactly right. But Salma was insane, running the game from the left side of the park, and then that free kick that also got saved. But the press just didn't let up, and then you had Bran missing chances and falling over. You had Ash Lawrence slowing down attacks, and you had Diani not on her best game, and Ada not really delivering, and it took until the 80th minute for anything of note to happen, which was finally VFL got away with like a perfect thread of passing needles that ended up with Huth threading this ball to Janu levels. And Janu, if she scored that, the absolute scenes would have been mental. And she should have rounded the keeper. She probably should have gone around Endler, but ended up striking it at Endler. And as soon as that strike went at Endler, you kind of just knew that was the chance. That was the one big chance that they were going to have, and it went away. And then when you went to ET, Marie Antoinette Katoto was on, Vicky Besho was on. Besho ended up playing a ball to Katoto, who scored, but Besho was offside in the process. And then it was who else but Melky Dumornay who ends up with a goal in the 102nd minute. I thought this was a handball in the corner process. I don't know how she got away with it, but also it is what it is. But they deserved it anyway, because it was 3 minutes later, we had another corner, and Egarola, a player who's been at Lyon for now half a decade, for moments like this to seal a quarterfinal second leg, a thumping header from a Salma Basha corner. Again, an swinging Salma Basha corner. It doesn't make sense to me, but I mean, again, they did score from the corner, but as I said before, they had 19 corners and scored one. So I think I'm right. I don't think 1 in 19 is a good rate, to be honest. Ask the Arsenal men what a good rate of scoring from corners is. But Chawinga ended up with the fourth late on, a very good ball from Endler to Katoto. Katoto heads it down to Chawinga. Chawinga destroys Vedemeyer in the process of this, rounds Johannes, and then threads it through. Like, masterful individual brilliance. And like, again, that's the part of the game that Arsenal should be scared of, which is the fact that Arsenal could play them at the Emirates, probably go 2-0 up, but all it takes is a 10-minute stint from Giraldez's mob to turn an entire leg around and look like a level of dominance that Lyon are worthy of when they wear that patch. That number 8 does strike the fear into other teams.
I think that the ruthlessness of Lyon, especially in the extra time, was indicative of a team that wants to win the Champions League. And I don't necessarily think that they have like the technical quality of, say, like Barcelona. I still think they're very valuable at the back. I don't think that they're defensively astute in any way. Their final third product, the way that they are scoring goals, the way that they're attacking, as you mentioned, the press, that is what will win them games. That is what will win tournaments at the end of the day for Lyon. It has for a very long time. I think that Wolfsburg, you have to commend them for the fact that they technically did keep Lyon out, because
in regulation time.
Aggregate they drew in regulation time, and that is incredible given the fact that like Dumornay's coming on, like Katoto's coming on.
Chewinga's coming on as
Yeah,
well.
like there is just a class and a level difference between what Lyon could bring on and what VFL could bring on. And we talked about Wolfsburg's depth, and we talked about how that will really see them unstuck by the end of it because you can't match that. Like there is no defenders as set of defenders in the world can match the level of power, of versatility, of immediacy as those players. Those players come on and they score. This is not like a group of players that comes on and game managers. I think at the end of the day, really, and what I'm trying to say is, Lyon just really need to focus on game management. Like if they go down and then in the second, in a second leg, how are they going to manage that game out? Will it be complete attacking and then being vulnerable on defense, or will it be just completely squeezing like they did VFL, completely squeezing them out of a contest?
Well, I think they'll go for the squeeze, and I think they'll go for the game management in a better way than Sonia ever could, because obviously we've seen Sonia's true colours and the ability to game manage, but also who better to game manage than Jonathan Giraldez? I mean, this guy is a genius. He is a football genius. I think it's fair to say that his win rate against Arsenal is 100%. He's played 3 matches against Arsenal, scored 10 and conceded 2. So look, if there's anyone who's going to knock Arsenal, the current European champions, off their pedestal, it's going to be the guy who's never experienced failure against Arsenal. And I'm going to question. I assume your home game is at the Emirates?
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah, there's no question about that, which means that the whole Boreham Wood Meadow Park, like that game should just be like it's a one-off. It's not really our home ground. Come to the ground that no one has ever beaten us on and show me that you've got
Lyon did.
it.
They beat us at the Emirates last season.
Yeah, but you beat them at their stadium.
Yeah. But I'm saying, like, I don't think necessarily home ground advantage is a thing when it comes to Lyon. Against other teams, 100%, because the Emirates is just such a daunting experience for other sides. But for Lyon, they strive off of the fact that they can play wide. Diani scored her goal against us through wide play. So it's not really that. I think in that second leg against us, they just capitulated. It's about whether they do that if they can complete a full 2-leg performance against an Arsenal team that is more willing to defend than ever before.
I think Diani will be a huge factor. Ultimately, in a lot of ways, the French Lauren James, in like she can make or break a side. She can, 100%. And if she gets the better of McCabe, or whether McCabe is central and Williamson isn't properly back, though we have a lot of time for this game, so I assume Williamson will be back and McCabe will be on that left side, and it will be Emily Fox on Chewinga, which will be an unbelievable matchup. Arguably 2 of the form players in the world in their respective positions running up against each other. But then it's obviously the question. I mean, I think of that Lynx Africa Arsenal kid. I think of Kim Little running amok against Lyon. So this is a time for Kim Little to, justify the contract, the extra year of the contract, and squeeze the lemons out against a team that will have heaps going for it. No pun intended there. But I do want to say that you did say that like it was admirable about VFL. Do you think that's like a little bit of a fall from grace from where they were, in the sense of like we give, like, if this was like United or Real Madrid, you could say like, oh, it's good, but they should be further along. Whereas like VFL, you have every right to criticize them based on the fact that from where they were, if you go back 5 years ago, if you go back 10 years ago, if you go back 15 years ago, either of those metrics, it's a failure by this standard.
I think it's a failure by the standard of the team as a whole. But
the institution.
But last year, they watched 10-2 on aggregate to Barcelona in the quarterfinal. And to be honest with you, Wolfsburg is a team that has heavily benefited from a women's football stage, if you like, that is highly profitable to tournament football teams. But like, Wolfsburg have never been a ball playing team. You watch Wolfsburg from 10 years ago, and they're shooting strikes from halfway. They're doing long balls. Alex Poppy's getting 20 goals that come from her head a season. Like, this is a team that has not necessarily established themselves as a ball playing team. So when
the latter stage, is that like 22, 23 side?
22, 23, 20 side. I was actually incredibly I was actually incredibly negative towards that 22-23 side because in all honesty, they should have beaten Arsenal
Yeah,
by a
yeah,
lot more than they did. They only
yeah.
beat us by a goal coming in extra time. So that was an Arsenal team coming at the early stages of Jonas and at the later stages of some of our key players. And if anything, that game and how they played, and then obviously we saw the capitulation in the final against Barcelona, that is very emblematic of the Wolfsburg that has come to light in the next 3 years.
No, 100%. And I think that team was like a super aggressive,
Mm.
high pressing. It's more the like again we talk about that final a lot because it's I'm not going to speak for you, but I think it's one of the greatest
Yeah,
finals in women's
the
football, one of the
comeback. Yeah.
greatest football
Mm.
displays of women's football in a lot of ways. And I just think the physicality, the nature of it, the quality of player that they had, like you could argue that like their front three was the best three in the world, and then you put the three Barcelona midfielders, you put the three Wolfsburg strikers and wingers, and you think to yourself, wow, you've got like a masterful team. And then basically that's what Barcelona ended up doing is they ended up buying two of the
Yeah.
three that were up front there. So it is like they did have the ability to be that technical gift. I guess it is just a coaching element, and I think VFL needs to rebrand itself as the place to go. And it's hard to do that when Bayern is so good and they're being insanely good in the Frauenbunds, but I think it is the job of VFL to recognise their pedigree over Bayern, because if Bayern lose to Barcelona again, which is more than likely, let's say it's 65-35%. I think a lot of people would say like 80-20. I think if Clara Ball's not playing, it's probably 75-25, but with Clara Ball playing, I think it tips the scale a little bit. But they need to rebrand themselves as, okay, fine, this team is better than us in the league, but who's the better European club? Who's the club with more history, more pedigree? And I think if you're aspiring to play some of the best football in the world, you should be looking to go to VFL, because a lot of youngsters are, like Buchholz, who's an ex-Barcelona player who's gone there, and then you have Pedamors and Enderman and all these like mature age players that you can learn off. I know Alex Pop isn't there, but Huth, Minga, changing of the guard means that we need to build a new academy of players that are going to fulfill the roles and the boots and the shoes of the prior legends and icons.
Yeah, well, I mean, how do you do that though if you don't really offer yourself up to different styles of player football? This is a team that has heavily relied upon it, taking in players that just suit this like really casual, very unadventurous style of football. Like you said, academy is 100% what they need. They need a new flock of players, but they also need to be open to changing how they play. They've played the same way for way too long in comparison to the rest of the European giants, including someone like Arsenal, who have had to adapt because the best teams are just going to, like Leon did, take you apart.
Yeah, and I mean, obviously, it's no longer Tommy Strutt, Stefan Lurch in charge. I hope there is just more development and we just get more from this team, because it wasn't like, other than Huth, it wasn't a necessarily old side. So I hope they come back a year wiser, a year stronger. But that is all we have now for Lyon, Bayern, Barca and Arsenal, the four teams left, the final four, obviously on their respective sides. We will get more into the preview elements of those semi-finals further down the track, but we will go to club ball, we will go to the WSL, where, I mean, Leggy didn't even mention the Q word, quadruple, after Arsenal got through, but I mean, I think, me, Manchester City fan, I think we're slowly starting to change that Q word to a T. And I think that's fantastic. And we did it we definitely got one step closer on the weekend with a game that I was nervous for at Old Trafford. I mean, Old Trafford is always a place that you never want to go as a City fan, and we made it look so easy. It was insane. The first 14 minutes, a bit shaky. Other than AG's shot early, Yama looked a bit off, scaring the living crap out of me. Yama, Jesus, why you? I swear you set up their best chances. You were the best XA. The best XA for Manchester United was Yamashita, which is a bit scary, but also indicative of how good our defensive line was and actually how good our midfield was. Oh my days. But the players you want to turn up in a derby, turn up big time. And it was Sam Coffey to Lauren Hemp who did that strike at the edge of the box, the half-turn quick, caught out Tullis Joyce. Combs said that Tullis Joyce is a world-class goalkeeper. It was an amazing save. Didn't get near it. Didn't touch the ball. Hit the post and went out. I don't know how she got the glaze. It is the most ridiculous. Like, Yama is better than her. I'm sorry, she just is. And the last 6 games has proved that would never happen to Yamashita in my head, personally. Okay. But we will find out next year, and I think I will be very harsh on my own words, to be fair, because I think it will be different because we're going to be managing multiple comps because we have secured promotion with this game. And the reason it is because we've got players that just turn up in the biggest of stages, and Bunny tried to recover this Hempo strike, and that was the recovery that ended up going out for a corner, and then AG whips it, and Viv comes out of the box. I mean, you just watched that. It was reminiscent of Menso Arsenal. We crowded the keeper. We moved out a bit, and then Viv heads it to the far post, 1-0. The Arsenal GOAT is becoming a City GOAT. I love her so much. I think this is it. This is that is the moment. And obviously this game was all Viv. She turned up for this one. It was not, she was involved in every single passage of play, every single goal. And she didn't just end them, she started them as well. So this second goal is, I think, the best goal we've scored all year. No question about it. You watch the highlights.
Better than Bene against Arsenal?
Bene's goal is an amazing, it's the best moment, but this is the best football we've played as a team by a mile. And if you go on the WSL highlights and you watch the 4-minute recap, all it shows is Kasparai's cross to Viv's header. And it's a good cross, it's a good header. You think of it, it's Viv, another headed goal. But this is masterful passing. It starts with AG, lobs the ball to Coffee. Coffee turns away from Nelson, plays it to Rose. Rose gives it all the way back to Viv. Viv plays it off, this ridiculous off-balance pass, back to Coffee, who's run it up. She splits 2 defenders with a pass to Bunny. Bunny bounces off to Hempo, back to Coffee, back to Bunny. Bunny whips it across to Fugino. Fugino tries to lay it off to Caspi. Caspi crosses it. She fails the cross, it gets blocked, but the recovery is Fugino, who plays it back to Caspi, and then Caspi whips it in and heads it in. And it just shows our relentlessness. It shows our drive to keep the game going, keep the ball moving, and it shows the class difference. Our team is so much better than theirs. The idea that they could play that expansiveness, that beautiful football, is so far from it. And if you want to see one of the best performances from our holding midfielders that are widely considered 2 of the top 5 holding midfielders in the world, Sam Coffey was ridiculous in this derby, absolutely locking up everything. Nothing got through her, and she was laying it off. She was allowing Uwe to get forward. There is now this semblance of chemistry and safety. It was her first Manchester derby. She easily could have shat the bed, and she was just like, nah, there's absolutely no way. Basically echoed everything that what AJ said in the pre-match. He says, "Win your duel." I love when he says duel. But I love that he doesn't use the word defend. He doesn't say defend well. He's like, we hunt the ball. We literally we were running after them. It wasn't to Lyon's level. We couldn't press in their own half that way. But we were stopping them from getting any semblance of chain of passing. And then that 15 chain pass got us that 2-0 goal. And then obviously, the third goal was just, I don't know how Viv played that ball to Hempo. That is just you can't teach that. That's why I think Viv, as a coach, will be, problematic, because there are just some things Viv does where she won't be able to teach the player, do this, or just do this better. It's Viv, there is only so many players who can play this outside of the foot, lofted ball off balance, perfectly in the line for Hempo, and then Hempo does this heavy touch, and I think to myself, oh my God, Hempo, you screwed this up. But she just let the runners drive into the box. It was perfect. Caspi on the back end, in front of the home end, the teapot celebration. It was just, if there was anyone I wanted to score in the Manchester derby, it's Caspi. Caspi ended up with the player of the match, which is crazy. I don't know how Viv doesn't get it for 3 goal contributions, but sure, Caspi's had 5 player of the matches, so why not give her another one? But look, 62% possession, 2 XG to 0.5, 15 shots to 10. They had 0.5 XG from 10 shots, which shows the level of the chances that they were getting, conceding low percentage chances but taking high percentage chances. Even Kanak had a 4th headed goal. This would have been her 4th headed goal in four 4 Manchester derbies, but apparently Tullis Joyce was getting held by Fugino in the process. It's the lightest hold I've ever seen, but look, Goalkeepers Union, I'm all here for it. But we killed the dagger. It was insane. We are so close to the title. It is insane, but there is only one thing left to do in Benchwarmers' honour, and it's to bring out our good friend, Mank Sinatra. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back. My name is Mank Sinatra. I haven't been back in a long time. We haven't had a Manchester derby since last year. Obviously, you loved the first one, our My Way Derby cover, which was excessively long for all the feedback that I got to hear. So I've decided to do another rendition of one of my classics, absolute classics. We have got Fly Me to the Blue Moon by Mank Sinatra. So I hope you enjoy. Fly me to the blue moon, 'cause city has so many stars. Viv, Caspi, Uwcl and Coffee were tearing Old Trafford apart. In other words, the title's here. In other words, AJ Kiss Me. I love that Swedish, man. 3-0 again, the league is done. Just let me sing forevermore. I can't wait till Matt Johnson shows Mark Skinner the door. In other words, Manny is blue, Manny on the map, baby. In other words, Manchester, I love you.
Jesus Christ. That was good.
Look, it's all that's. I mean, I'm gonna struggle to do another Mank Sinatra because there's only so many songs he has. I know there's "Come Fly with Me, Let's Fly, Fly Away,"
Yeah,
but
that's good.
we'll have to navigate that one because that one's like not as much in my repertoire. But
then I go and spoil it all by saying something stupid like "I love you." You could probably do that.
yeah, I could do yeah, and I'm there is one more. I could do the cover of I Can't Help Falling in Love with Blue Moon. But we will get there. There will be a few more renditions of Mank Sinatra. I actually didn't let you talk about the derby. Yeah. Is there anything you wanted to say?
I was going to take the United perspective. I was going to say Manchester United were completely outplayed. And in a sense that we've seen when Manchester United play big games in the league, they like to sit back. They tried to sit back. I think the first 15 minutes was probably their best patch of play in the whole game. If anything, your lot, as you mentioned with the midfield, were incredibly tenacious. It was a complete dismantling of everything. That second goal that you scored, which you rightfully said started from your own box, was just Manchester United watching the ball. They were ball watching a lot of the time. They used 4 of their subs. You guys used 2. Their depth right now is a bit poor. I love when commentators go, they're missing their key players like Janssen and Tooney. Hilarious, because this was
and I'll give them Ziggiotti because Ziggiotti is a big cog. But last time we played them, they did have Ziggiotti, and Ziggiotti got pressed to death. She was arguably the worst player on the ground. So look, there is an emphasis on her importance, but the reality was that there is no Manchester United player, past or present, that would have changed that result then and there. Maybe Alessia Russo, but
no. I think as a cog, as a unit, this is a team that has heavily relied upon big stars, big players. They're like their own Atletico Madrid in this league. Like you are seeing
it's beautiful.
a team.
Leggy, you're speaking my language.
You're seeing a team that is highly dependent upon their best players. So much so that when those big players don't turn up, or when their compatriots, in Miyazawa's case, she heavily relies upon Ziggiotti to do off-ball work to allow her to have space. Then you're going to see a completely nullified Manchester United, a Manchester United who does not deserve to be in 4th place right now.
Yeah, 100%. And as I said, I did say it in the song, but Matt Johnson is the sporting director at Manchester United for the women's side. And look, if Mark Skinner goes, the question would be who is the replacement, whether they go for someone with a bit more pedigree, whether it's in Europe, whether it's in England, who really knows.
I think they
Yeah.
need a European coach. I think that they are heavily dependent on this English style. And unfortunately for Mark Skinner, this is not the English Premier League, nor is this the Championship. This is not a league of nearly 40 games where you can get away with imprinting a style and that's going to work, because Manchester City have proven they can play what you would say three styles of football throughout this season. You know, there's the aerial threat that you guys have through Bunny Shaw, which is direct football. There is the possession style of play, and then there's that back against the wall underdog last ditch effort style football that is not as used this year, but has been incredibly worthwhile, especially games against Arsenal, for example. That is a diversity. There's a diverse portfolio of football that Manchester United have just not shown. They have one gear. That's just it.
And I do hope that that is matured upon. I hope those three are honed in on, especially for the archetypes we have, specifically the balls to the wall, heart on the line. Like, we want our youngsters on the pitch. We want our fastest, most tenacious play. We want the Benets on the pitch. We want the Carolans at the end of a match going after it. Whereas our control, our possession, we want Hasegawa and Coffee on at the same time. We don't necessarily need Laura Coombs, but when we're trying to control a game or finish off a game, that's when Coombsy comes on. So it's about making sure that the mob stays the mob and making sure that next year we don't get culled. Kind of like, I mean, look, I wonder what. I mean, there are players like Jess Park that were in that game. What are they thinking right now? What's Jill Roord thinking right now? There are players that could have been a part of this project and probably been a helpful service to this, but I mean, have missed out on the rewards. I mean, there's been a lot of criticism of Grace Clinton. Grace Clinton has played her part in this season, and regardless of her part would have been if she was at United, of course. But you go into a different team, you have to learn the ropes, and she's also been injured for a big portion of the season and getting back to the semblance of form. And when your competition is Vivian Miedemar, Sam Coffey, and Yui Hasegawa, don't expect to start every week. But when we have another competition, and if we win, we have the Champions Cup as well, there'll be another competition to be a part of, then we start talking about how many minutes Sam Coffey gets. We start talking about how many minutes Sydney Lohman gets. We start talking about how many minutes LBB and Grace Clinton get, because you need a full squad of players to go for the quadruple, as Leggy would say. But I mean, that is all I really have for the Manchester Derby, the Manc Derby. As we move, I mean, this was just a whole Derby week. So we'll go to the next Derby, which was Arsenal v Spurs, the North London Derby, which is always a North London exhibition derby, an exhibition for Alessia Russo to stat pad her way to glory in a lot of ways. Jesus Christ, the defending on some of these goals was absolutely horrendous. The fact that they left her alone, like, I want an edit, I want someone else to make, I can't be stuffed, like, I just won't have time in the week, but someone make an edit of like old school Robert Van Persie in the Arsenal diving for a header, and then it just cuts to Alessia Russo for that diving header, because that was, look, it feels like that header felt like a moment where it's like, again, she's done it so many times, but I just think to myself, it's like, they're like, this was like a warning sign that's like, next year we are coming.
Yeah. Well, I mean, all our best players have had these moments against Spurs. So Alessia Russo has had her first hat-trick for Arsenal against Spurs. Beth Mead got her first goal for the Arsenal against Spurs. And there have been countless other players throughout our history who've had absolute standout performances.
I'm sure Viv probably has the most goals in a
probably,
North London derby as well.
Because she's elite, and as you said earlier, she's generational. But to me, this was a redemption. I think the first game we played against them this season was horrendous. It was absolutely horrendous to watch. That was in the midst of our quote-unquote game management, which ended up being a nil or draw, which to me was a real signifier for change. I feel like after that game, we really tried to step it up in terms of our final third production. This game was 100% based off of that game. I 100% believe that. It was based on the fact this is the Emirates, this is the North London derby, and if we have nothing to play for in the league, if you take that mentality like Sonia Bonpastor has now mathematically out of the tie, but if you take that mentality into this game, then this was just a game where we could have our best players shine. You could have Alessia Russo, as I said, scoring hat-tricks. Smithy was incredible. Cully was fine. She was okay, but she did her job. I think, though, that the standout player for me... No, the standout player for me is always going to be Smilla Holmberg. Her second start, This is a player that I said last week was probably second best mid-season transfer, just behind Liverpool's goalkeeper, Falk. I think
Folk.
now she is the best mid-season transfer. The way that she's able to adapt on that right-hand side, she's taking over from Emily Fox. Like, this is not just any right back. This is arguably the best right back in the world, Emily Fox. She's able to play, yeah. She's able to play tick for the Emily Fox bingo card.
Yeah,
She's
yeah.
able to play right back, right wing, and she is incredibly dangerous.
I want to see her on the. I want to see her on the
Well, she
wing.
does. She plays right wing. She played right wing in this game, I believe, as well. If I'm pretty sure.
I think she was just so far. I think she was just so far up that it felt like she was just playing right wing.
She
But I
played
think she
right wing.
was. She did track back. So I do think she was like presented right back. I just don't think she like was like owning right back. She was
she
just
played-
playing
she
further
played-
up forward. That's how aggressive you were in this game. It was low key uncharacteristic of Arsenal. Like, I kind of thought you'd go the 2 goals from Alessia, maybe you hold on for 70 minutes and then get the third one. But I mean, I think it's because you conceded. I think you conceded that
enough,
goal, and Marnham, I mean, it was very poor. Like, look, if I'm Lyon, I'd be watching those set pieces and start whipping in some corners for training Giraldez, because my God, like, the goals that you conceded were not, like, especially the Beth England one, I think, like, Ada will be licking her lips at.
No, that's just individual quality.
No, do you think that's deep? But that this is the point we were making before about DVD versus Borba, where I think Borba saves that. No, question
I don't think
about
anyone
it.
saves. To be completely honest
Interesting.
with you, I think that is an unsavable shot. I think that is a
Unsavable,
1.5. That's a 1.5, yeah.
It's right in her hands.
No, it's not. It went through her because it was that powerful. That was out of nowhere. She was completely blindsided. That looked like a cross more than a
the
shot.
way DVD reacted was like she had dropped a sitter. She dropped an absolute sitter.
She reacted like that because Beth England and Tottenham scored against them. As they were 4-1 up.
But I mean, she conceded the first one to Marnham in the own goal, and I think that was poor marking from her as well. But I'm telling you, maybe I watched that goal, maybe I watched it on slow mo or like 0.9 or something. But in my head, that is a good prime DVD of the Chelsea game saves. Puts it in her hands, it hits her hands, it goes down to the floor, and then she catches it. 100, in my opinion. Like, that's what I think. The best of DVD saves that, and I think, and I try, like, as I've said, I think Borba is an amazing shot stopper, and that is the kind of thing Borba, like, taps up over the bar. And, like, we saw it against, like, I mean, Rolfo's header was super powerful in that United game, and she saved that one, and that's probably the save I remember most from Borba. Yeah. But I do want to say Caitlin Ford's strike was fantastic, despite the touch being relatively terrible, but she just saved her own touch with a magnificent finish. And then Vicky P, I'm going to give Vicky P some plaudits.
Give Vicky P some credit?
Yeah, because I've been roasting her all year. But that tackle on, I don't know who it was, Tottenham victim, but gets tackled, and then she just played in Blackstenius, and she basically did the, like, Dwayne Wade, LeBron James thing, where she played the ball, and she was just like, if you don't score this, Stina Blackstenius, if you don't score this peach of, I've set you up with the easiest chance in the world. And of course, Stina buried it. And of course, Stina has just been on a run that you absolutely want her in the murky waters of the semi-finals and the finals coming up. I think the last thing Barcelona, Bayern and Lyon want to see is a Stina Blackstenius in form, because if she is, there is no stopping her, whether in the air, on the ground. Like, there is obviously an argument. We can meme Stenius all we want, and we can talk about what she is. The reality is that if you don't think other teams are not taking her seriously, and they're going Russo and Caldente and Smith and Kelly and all that stuff, Blackstenius on her day is a top 5 striker in the world, and I don't think it's a crazy thing to say that. I think off her day it's hard to watch, but honestly, it's not as many days as people really think. I think the offside Stenius memes are over. I don't think that exists as much anymore. I think the off-target Stenius doesn't exist. It's really just Stina Blackstenius being an outlet for Arsenal. We were questioning, how do they do this 2 up front? How does Renee get it right between these 2? And I think Russo has finally been able to get the impact she wants on the score sheet from deeper, which shows with the importance. That second goal that Alessia scored is just pure, one word, pure class. Like, that is like round the keeper, Hezi the defender, side netting. It is just perfection. And I think you absolutely brutalised them in a North London derby the way you probably should have earlier in the year at their home ground, because you probably gave them a little bit too much respect. And as you said, it's your game management error. I think it's now fair to say that's your blip. That's your blip error. It's not even game management. Like, you weren't playing good enough to win the league then. And the problem is that you are playing good enough to win the league now. It's just a bit too little too late, unless Gazball decides to turn up and rob us of a league, which would be crazy, by the way. That would be insane. But I think a lot of people know that this, like, it is a little bit too little too late.
Well, yeah, I mean, I won't say it is until it's mathematically
Damn
done,
straight. And you have every right to. You have every right to.
But I think going back on your point about Caitlin Ford, and I think this is what this Sledge's ball is, it is about empowering. I mean, she can use as much of the suffering terminology as she likes. I think that really that is just like a pessimistic perspective on what is a team that is such a unit, such a stronghold, that we can weather storms, we can weather a pseudo comeback from Spurs and then score, 2 on them after the break. Like, Caitlin Ford in this game had just come off the back of losing an Asian Cup where she blamed herself. We basically, Spurs then offer her the opportunity to score a goal. She takes it and she's elated. And that's
when was the last time she scored in the league? It would have been ages ago.
September,
Jesus
right? Like,
Christ.
this is a player that needed it, right? And we gave that to her because, like, that is what we are. We are now a team similar to last year that are now just giving goals to the people who need it. Like, this is a charity team in that, like, really nice sense that we're giving Alessia Russo a hat trick because when push comes to shove in the Champions League, she'll need that confidence to do it in the big moments.
100%. And like episode 8 to 12, we were talking about Caitlin Ford. Like, she's got to go. She's got to go to America. McCabe's leaving. I mean, McCabe's been linked to a multitude of different clubs, and I all think it's waffle, to be honest. But until McCabe is actually saying that that's the club, I don't trust any outlets. But like, we were talking about that, and then the Champions Cup happened. She got her goal, and then all of a sudden she's clicked into gear. Yeah. I think she had not enough moments for the Tillies, but I hope there's a real possibility. I'm not going to say it's a guarantee, and it never will be a guarantee with Arsenal, because that's just not how it works, as much as you'd love it to be. But like, there is a very healthy possibility that Caitlin Ford could be a 2-time European champion at the end of this year. Like, it is a serious possibility. It makes her arguably the most decorated, like, Australian football athlete. Like, yes, obviously Ellie Carpenter has won a multitude of things with Lyon, and that's different. But like, to be a part of 2 European Cups in England, plus, I mean, you're going to be going for the FA Cup. You're still in the league. She is a mainstay in a top 5 club. It is very impressive and has kept the rounds, and she's going on her own accord. It's not them telling her that she needs to go. It's whether you get another winger. I think that will be the argument in the summer, whether her time has come and her age is going to come to show. But look, you have Beth Mead on the other side, who's probably going to get offered another contract with the way she's playing and the importance she has to the second half of the year. But all will be revealed, really, and I think that goes the same for Chelsea at the end of this year and in what will be revealed, because a Subway Cup at the start of this year is probably not enough, and now we are praying that they don't make Europe. That would be hilarious, but I think they do win the rest of their WSL games now that they are out of Europe and they can go full strength and start brutalizing some teams that they need. But this was very far from a brutalization. I don't know how this gets constituted as a derby. Why didn't they switch this week and last week for the LCL? They could have done a London derby there. That wasn't Arsenal and Tottenham, but they did Chelsea and Villa. Villa were, albeit impressive, a little bit left to desire, I guess. I feel like they should have been able to pull the trigger a bit more and been able to slow the damage. I don't think Chelsea were in the top of their form, and Lynn Vilms definitely is in the top of her form. Jesus Christ. I mean, look, this is absolutely insane form from, like, this is a Dutch international. She's the starting right back for the Dutch now that Caspi is not the starting right back for the Dutch. And She plays for Aston Villa. Like, she's got to go somewhere, surely. Like, surely, if I'm Real Madrid, surely you Real Madrid, PSG, Champions League club, go after this girl who's just got a hat-trick of assists against Sonia Pastor's Chelsea. Like, she's right there. It's not that hard to see. She's, like, it's right in the open. But Chastity Grant managed to score that, like, in one shot, which I don't think she's ever done before. Again, they didn't score against us. They had about 15 shots, and then she has one shot against Chelsea, which kind of shows Chelsea's luck this season. But we had Sam Kerr running onto Nuskin's through ball, and I mean, I think you've been quite harsh in the notes. Leggy's called this a tame shot, which I mean is how I would describe Beth England's tame shot at DVD. But I also think Beth England has hit it straight at DVD's hands, whereas Sam Kerr has looked up, Roebuck has dived to the left preemptively to try and stop Sam from going across the box, and Sam has put it at her right glove. So she's completely wrong-footed her, which is what I expect prime Sam Kerr to do, which is like look up, pass the ball in the near post, absolutely destroy her, bit Cole Palmery in that way, like just pass it in the goal. But she just rips her apart for like it's her brain and the muscle, like it's all of it was involved in that fantastic goal. It's one of the best goals Sam scored this season, I think. Like, I mean, obviously this is for Chelsea, right? The DPRK goal is probably the best goal she scored this season, but it was. This began the barrage, am I right? And then Chelsea scored again. Lauren James setting up Germa. I mean, Lauren James probably could have scored that goal if that cross just kept going into the goal. And then
I think it was Lauren James's goal. Like I don't think Germa got a touch on that.
No, she definitely does.
No,
she definitely does.
I don't reckon she did. I definitely don't reckon she did. I mean, to be honest with you, Germa had a far better game in attack than she did in defense. So maybe
100%.
The GA.
And
honestly.
Lucy Bronze as well. Oh my God, Lucy Bronze was horrendous in this game. But that goal from Lauren James, though.
No, well, the 7 minutes of Chelsea right there is prime Chelsea. And in all honesty, you didn't think that Villa were going to ever find a way back. I mean, 3-1 up against Chelsea, that is not usually a place where you find yourself, like, thinking that this is going to be a possibility of getting
3-1 down. Yeah, exactly
or any points here. Like, this is a Chelsea team that then probably should have sat back, tried to squeeze out Aston Villa. Instead, Villa come back and Kirsty Hansen, I mean, had an insane season, Kirsty Hansen, playing for a mid-table side like Villa. I mean, it's
elite.
insane. But her 2 goals were in the whole story of Chelsea's defensive narrative this season, which is lax, which is completely unaware of their spatial surroundings, and which is unfortunately Germa's story this season. She's not had a good season in defense. I don't care what anybody says about her being a quote-unquote top defender, because as a centre back in her actual role, she has not been good, and she's allowed goals like these to go through.
I'm actually going to go the other way, to be honest. I'm actually going to say that, like, Germa wasn't fantastic and isn't to her level that she's ever been at the US Women's National Team, especially as sometimes the US Women's National Team captain. But, look, I've seen Katie McCabe do it, go from fullback to centre half, and it worked. It worked. I don't think it's your ideal, but it worked. We've seen Catley move, and that worked, and that's what you've got now. And we've seen AG go the other way. But Lucy Bronze, centrally, I'm sorry, it's not right. It just doesn't work that way. She was so mistake prone. She doesn't have the ability to impact the game creatively from the centre of the park the way McCabe does, because McCabe can switch with Hines, and Hines is a centre half, right? But she can't switch with Carpenter. Carpenter can't play centrally, so she's stuck on this right centre half, and then she's headering balls. And look, I think this is the worst part of Lucy Bronze's game, going back with the flight aerially. I think I can recall 3 goals this season that are Lucy Bronze responsible for heading the ball where she doesn't need to be going after it. And it is that never say die attitude that keeps Lucy Bronze. And she's an amazing player and is probably the best English player of all time. But she's the best right back of all time. And I don't think she's the centre half that they make it out to be, because if she was at right back and Natalie Bjorn was the right centre half, there's no way this game would have ended 4-3. It would have been 3-1 or probably 5-1, and they would have kept going. But I think they are really missing Natalie Bjorn. And then if if it's Bjorn and Germa, I think you see a better part of Germa as well. I think Germa is too young to be bossing around Lucy Bronze in the centre of the park and communicating in a way that's beneficial
She's the
for
same
both
age
parties.
as Ellie Carpenter. Like, come on, like she's not
No,
young.
no,
This
no,
isn't
but
Berman. Like
no,
Berman's 19.
but Lucy Bronze is like 40.
35. Like, yeah, the 34.
Yeah. Like it's not I'm not saying it from a semblance of like communication itself. I'm just saying like there are so many leaders on the park. Hannah Hampton has been at Chelsea for how long? You have Ellie Carpenter, who's there as a European champion. You have Lucy Bronze. She is like the fourth. Yeah, Kira Walsh, Erin Cuthbert. She's the like fourth, fifth, sixth leader in the team, where in the US women's national team, she's arguably second or first in a lot of ways, especially in the back line. So it is a different place, and I think it is just going to be one of those signings. If they keep Sonia, I think it'll be one of those signings that we see mature, and if it's Bjorn and Germa, I think we'll see a very different Chelsea and a much better Chelsea ultimately. But yeah, that strike from Hansen, look, if that strike, the one that went off the post from distance, if that went in, I would have absolutely cried. I would say I have to put Hansen in my team of the season. Like, she just goes in. Like, right now, she is so close to the fringes. It's actually insane how good she is. It's to do it for Villa, like, Arroyo has been shambles at parts of this season where there was that like patch of form where they conceded like 25 goals, but she was still scoring. They were losing like 7-3, but she was scoring hat tricks. Like, it's insane. Kirsty Hansen's form has never let up, no matter if Villa are in the green or in the red. But sadly, it was Nuskin. Who else is it? It's always bloody Nuskin who say, like, I mean, maybe we needed to stop talking about her. We kept saying, why aren't you playing Nuskin? Why aren't you playing Nuskin? And then all of a sudden, we're right, though. Like, we are right, but we don't want to be right. We want Nuskin to play and them to lose, and then Sonia can go in an interview and go, see these bench warmers? They told me to play Nuskin, and I was wrong. But that would have been fantastic. But Anna Patton also tried to score that goal. Yeah, there's just a lot of moments in this game, a lot of terrible defending, but definitely a fun watch. I had a great time watching this, to be fair. I had all the emotions. It's just the ending of it I didn't really like.
I mean, I went after, what was it, like after the 27th minute, I was like, this is gonna, like, why am I watching this? Like, I could be doing so much more with my time. And then Hansen scores. And I think you made the point about Hansen doing it at Villa. Like, this is not the first time a player has been doing it at Villa.
Go on, Leggy, tick the box, do it. 22-23. Talk about
23. 22-23, my favorite season. No, actually, my second favorite season of all time.
What, 24-25?
No, actually, if you want to know, it's 23-24 because it's the best season, because it's chaotic as hell. But no, I mean, Rachel Daly, this is
22 goals.
This is the obvious comparison. If anything, you should probably be asking the question, why is it falling to Kirsty Hansen all the time? I know she's their striker, but it's kind of like what I mentioned last week. Like, Chastity Grant can have her one moment of whatever it was, like absolute, completely different to any side of football that she's played in the last 6 months. Or you can go to Noel Maritz, who has been absolutely, I'm sorry to say, woeful in that left side. I mean, her and Niswanger had a very little chemistry, if I'm being completely honest with you. More so the fact that they were getting absolutely killed by the double that is Alyssa Thompson and Ellie Carpenter, to all of Niswanger's individual quality trying to stifle both. But this is a side now that is actively looking at Hansen. You have Jean-Francois, Kendall, Taylor. They're all directing their their passes to Hansen, because she is the one that's going to get them the points. She has also not been at times, because Villa ultimately are mid-table. They're inconsistent, and I don't blame anyone. I mostly blame Arujo, but you have to give praise to Hansen. I mean,
that was your blip era. You copped a draw at the Emirates to this team, and I think to myself, when you say a pack side is only like 3 or 4 players away from becoming not a pack side. Like, I genuinely think if they get another centre half to go with Patton, because I'm glad Arroyo has thrown away the 3 at the back, which is a great thing, because Jenna is much better and Vilms is, I think, world class, and I think they'll be lucky to keep both. Honestly, they'll keep Jenna, I think, but I don't think they'll keep Vilms if she keeps playing like this. But they just need another outlet to score, and it can't, they need to do a bit of culling. I think they need to get rid of the Salmons and the Grant. Like, we're over the Salmon and Grant era of Villa. Like, we don't need those players around. You need better players on the bench, and it needs to be the players that are on the field going to the bench for better players. And I think it's hard to look at Villa as as a destination for certain people, especially in the Midlands. It is a hard place to live for players that want to like experience
I
other
hate
parts
that
of
argument.
England.
I
No, but
fucking
but
hate that
it's
argument.
but it is an important thing. It
It's also
actually
like the
is.
worst because if Aston Villa were like, a top two side, oh, I'm not going because I
But
have to
they
live.
but they were third, right? They were third. That should
Yeah.
have been a springboard. But the reality is that like players want to move and they want to live in London, they want to live in Manchester, and that's just what it's sadly what happens, and it's the reason why like in Menso Newcastle is a very far away from everywhere else in England specifically, and I just think like we don't always talk about the geographics of like why it's hard for other teams to come up as a destination club when we're talking about the place itself, and I think that's why we look at like smaller nations. It's a bit different, but like I think for Villa they need to be looking at a striker to help Chastity Grant go to the bench, and then help Hansen.
Yeah.
And look, Chastity Grant has a role to play next year. She can come on and
I don't
score
think
goals
so.
and win games.
I don't, she can't
in my
do any of
opinion,
that. She can't. Honestly,
I
she's
think
a
she
bad
can. I think she
footballer.
can from the bench.
No.
I don't think she can start, but I know you don't have faith. I have
no
faith in
faith.
you, Chastity. You just believe in the Chastity bracelet. Like, but look, we will leave the new derby that WSL has coined here, the Villa Chelsea derby, and move to the Merseyside derby. So I was going to ask you, the 4-3, is this a better game than the Merseyside derby or no?
No, because this Merseyside derby, I mean,
Was
yes,
insane.
it was a fine. Like the 4-3 was fine. It just happened to be like the second half was all Chelsea, and you thought they were going to score eventually. The Liverpool Everton game, from a perspective of appreciating Liverpool for what they did in the midway through the season in terms of bringing players in and trusting Gaz for whatever football he wants to bring through. For then also an Everton team who've been in exceptional form, like fantastic form this Everton side has been in. This has been a game of two halves, but also just a game of what I see the future of this Merseyside derby to be. I mean, this is not
Good.
This is not like what the FA Cup tie was like, where it was all Liverpool. This was a game where there was a red card.
Yeah,
There
thank God
own
there was
goals,
if anyone,
penalties.
I mean, I don't know if you can bet on WSL football, but this is what the Merseyside derby needs. It needs a guaranteed red, and thank God for Grace Fisk. You know, like 2 yellows is a red. I expected a straight red in this game, but my God, some of the goals that were in this game, Goodison Park was putting on an absolute clinic for these players. I mean, Kerry Holland has come into serious form in the last month, which is insane. I'm actually quite worried about this Liverpool City like tie. Like, I mean, as much as it is City Pool in a different way, it is Gazball v the establishment. Like, it does feel like a bit of a court case with him coming back to the Joey and him going back to his old stomping grounds, and he's probably going to sit in the stands again.
I was going to say, is he going to just stand?
He's going to go back to his old seat. He's probably got his name engraved on it, and he'll probably sit there. We'll be 2-0 up at halftime. There'll be 3-all in full time, and we think to ourselves, wow, they're bottling it right now. And I just think to myself, you know what? Gazball, you've got all the... Like, look, I didn't... Like, I wanted him to go for his own sake. I actually thought that he was a very good manager who ended up just not being able to deliver what he was very close to delivering. And now AJ is kind of like reinvented it and is kind of benefiting off the fruits of his labor. It is a little bit of an Arnie Slot situation where he has like I can give a lot of the credit of this WSL title if we win it to Gareth Taylor. And it's because of the ability and trust he puts in his players. Like the reason Kerry Holland is playing this well is because he has good chemistry with certain players that end up playing well, and it's usually on the left side, right? like Lauren Hemp and Kerry Holland are playing to very similar levels right now in their form because they just play with a level of confidence and freedom. And Beata Olsen's is one of the most clinical strikers in the league. He's laying her off, and she's opening up her foot up like Thierry bloody Henry to the top right corner. Like, I have to feel bad for Courtney Brosnan because she copped an own goal, an absolute worldie, and a deflected goal. Like, none of that. Like, I was so ready to be like, oh, Courtney Brosnan, she's a bit overrated. She copped 3 goals that she could do absolutely nothing about. And you know what? Shout out to Everton for actually trying to get back into this tie a little bit. And look, they did suffer some ramifications. Inma Gabaro, it is confirmed an ACL, which is really sad. Also sad for La Roja as well, as she started to get some caps as well. But the deflected free kick from Aurora Galley, the Galley ball to Kramzar, which was magnificent, and then ended up having Kramzar's finish for her first goal in the Toffee colours. But it was just a weird 90. It was a bit of chaos, there was a bit of energy at the end, which was really feisty. It's just kind of a perfect encapsulation of what you want, the ending with Ruby Mace taking an audacious shot. That is what I want in a Merseyside derby, and I think it delivered on all fronts.
I think you mentioned with the Villa game that like Villa just need a few more players, especially like connection wise. I think that like Fernandez and Ruby Mace are inarguably two of the best centre back duos in the WSL, let alone Europe. Like the way that they are able to hold their defensive line, the way that they are able to go forward. This is not a good representation of that in this particular game, but I think it would be remiss not to mention the fact that you mentioned Ruby Mace having an audacious shot. You also mentioned trust in players. I think that this Everton team, if they are going to fulfill any sort of prosperity next year, which I think is the kind of option for them every season, in every single season, because they stay up and everyone's like, oh my God, we've stayed up. Now what do we do? I think Phelan to actually establish Everton as a mid-table side, the new Tottenham, if you like, similar to what Villa have decided to start
Everyone's
doing.
the new Tottenham until they're the old Tottenham.
Yeah, exactly. If they want to actually be something similar to what Liverpool have to try and be, you have to have trust in your players. And I think Ruby Mace and Fernandez, if they can keep hold of both of them, it'll be a very good, prosperous centre back duo.
Maybe Fernandez. I think they keep one. It's sad because I actually think Fernandez is better than Mace. I just think the English tax.
I was just about to say.
Ruby Mace is so United pilled in my head. Like there is no way she doesn't go to United. I feel like even her name is United coded. I don't know why I just think she is like Millie Turner goes. But
the problem
Ruby
is that
in.
Ruby Mace is a right-sided centre-back. She's never going to be able to replace Maya Letitia. And
True.
so can she move to the left-sided centre-back position, which I think any centre-back will tell you is actually vastly different despite the slight
if you
change.
talk to Serena Weigman had plans to play Maya Letitia at right back. So I don't even know what the plan is and who even the manager would be at United to be able to funnel them in. Maybe it's a 3 at the back moment, but I could definitely see Ruby Mace going. I think Fernandez is the better left side, and maybe United go after Fernandez. Who knows? But if Phelan wants to get the backing, that would be fantastic. I hope he does get the backing for the performances he's put in, and then building up the fullbacks. They just need the fullbacks. But I also think if Gabaro keeps playing at this level, I know she's got a year out now, but if she comes back, I mean, there's a good chance that she gets picked up by someone else because she has a talent level that some would say is too good for Everton. But we will move to other teams that Everton are better than around the grounds, like West Ham and LCL. Death taxes are certainties in life, but so is LCL in a score draw. 1-1. They haven't won a game since February 1st. Eder Maestro, 2 wins, 3 draws, 5 losses, by the way. Just letting you know that they
He's
were
gone.
in 6th. Yeah, not yet, but
He's
maybe
gone.
at the end of the season if there's a new manager to come through. But it was a very good finish from Jana Fernandez, another ex-Barcelona player stalking the grounds of the WSL, who finished off a well-worked counter-attack by Freya Godfrey, and then we had a volley and a half at the hour mark from Una Siren. This is a ridiculous volley, just the distance. I feel like Lete probably could have done better, but I also wouldn't expect that shot ever. Like, it was a ridiculous... It wasn't a half volley, it was a volley, and it came out, and I thought Sakia did a good job of clearing it, but my God, she absolutely romped this ball, and it went, I don't know if it was top, but it was powerful, it was hard, it was uncharacteristic, it was a moment, it was 1-1, and then there was a few moments late on with Jana and Goodwin, but ultimately ends up in a draw, and actually ends up worse than a draw for LCL, because Kosovare Aslani, probably their player of the season this season.
Really? I would not say that.
I'd say it's God. No, the first half of the season, I think it's Aslani, and then I'd say it's Godfrey from there. Basically, this is more than just about the season. This is a 36-year-old player who's been playing in relatively good form, getting stretchered off after being brought on 30 minutes before and has been now confirmed an ACL. She's turning 37 in July, and that message on socials was absolutely heartbreaking. I do think there is a little bit about it that is hinting at hanging. I don't know if it is. Maybe we will get. I don't know how many games. Her games are numbered now with this ACL, but I do think, are we close to the end of the career of Kosovare Asllani?
If we are, then it's devastating that it goes out like this. She has had injuries in the past that have kept her out. She's also had just time away from the game, which has kept her out. And I think that in that time, I think as a football, as a code of football, we missed our globe-trotting Aslani. Like she went everywhere. And I think that that is one of the benefits of having her in this LCL team, similar to the players who aren't necessarily only from England or only from the nearing states like Wales or whoever, because you actually get to bring what this LCR team is, I think, what they've tried to be, which is a diverse portfolio of different types of football squeezed into one and just put out there for 90 minutes. Missing Ozlani is missing a captain, missing a leader, missing a defensive and attacking like stalwart in that midfield, but also a player who can link up with various other different players to make them look better. Because at the end of the day, Aslani's career, mostly, in my opinion, bar a fantastic World Cup back in 2019, was the player who would just make everyone look fantastic. She reminds me a lot of Leah Velti, and you're going to miss that. And unfortunately, LCL don't have a replacement. And I don't think that they can get a replacement unless they go searching for another like heritage baller to fill in that slot. Again, that's more money wasted. But I think in this game in particular, it's not that they missed her. It's just that by the end of this game, it was evident that there was like something heavy weighing on this LCL side.
100%, and she's just like, I mean, when she like fully retires, we'll go through the rounds. But I mean, she's important to a lot of different teams, whether it be in France, in England, in Sweden, in Norway. Like that, just she's been everywhere. Spain, Italy. She comes back to England. Like she just does good things. I mean, she was a part of the WSL winning City side. Like we won a Conti Cup. That was the double, right? And like she was a big part in that. Like obviously not like a mainstay in the team. She was a lot younger then. It's 10 years ago. She's like 26, 27 years old. But ultimately, she's been around the grounds and has collected a level of respect that you can only ascribe to so many players. I mean, hence why she's still playing at 36 years old, which is a credit to her in itself. But I do think LCL leave a lot to be desired when they're drawing to West Ham at West Ham. I know it's away from home, but their away form hasn't been particularly great. But it just makes me question what they could have done later on in that game to get themselves over the line. And I just think they need to be focused on the future. And there are certain signings they're looking at, whether it be Katie McCabe, whether it be other players who are looking to go elsewhere. But we all know that Michelle can cook up different things at different times, and it will be an interesting transfer window period as they do stay up. Like I mean, they did just bring up a lot of the operating moments and losses, and we expect that. That's what no one goes into buying football clubs for profit. It's to retain the profit you have elsewhere and solidify it into something tangible. And I think if LCL can maintain their solace in the WSL, then it becomes a tangible project. It isn't just a glitz and glamour. And I am interested to see where it goes, purely from like an experimental standpoint, but also just like from a fun standpoint. Like I'm gonna make fun of something that has a lot of money in it. Like that's how it works. We don't make fun of clubs that don't have money. We make fun of clubs that do, and they are not that, like, compared to other clubs that don't get the support and the currency, they should be beating West Ham in my head. But again, it's depends who you ask. It's a bit of interpretation. The same way that I expect Brighton, I expect Leicester to be better at home, but I expect Brighton to beat them, and they did that. And it's because in my head, it's sometimes football is very simple, and when Kiko Saker is the end of a product that is made by Kafaji and facilitated by Fran Kirby, there's not much Leicester can do about it, right? And they just have better play. Like, you could argue, like, you could do a combined 11 of Brighton and Leicester, and you could take 11 Brighton players. I'm not even joking. And I love Janina Leitzig, but I think Ndozi is better than her, to be honest. And it was 15 shots to 5. It was more possession. It was more better chances, bigger chances, higher percentage chances. And if they didn't have Leitzig and it was Clark in goal, Maybe it would have been 2-3-0 in my head. Not that I think, I just think Leipzig is that good and she made some ridiculous saves. But that is all we have for Around the Grounds. That is all we have for the WSL. And that is all we have for part 1 of the Benchwarmers podcast.